Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Smart podcast. I am your host, Dr. Karen Litzy, owner of Karen Litzy Physical Therapy, located in New York City. And today you are in for a treat. So, if you are a practice owner or a business owner, you are going to want to get out your notepad, get out your phone, and take some notes because today we're going to be talking about best practices in hiring. And I'm really happy to have as our guest Dr. Michael Neal. He is the founder and CEO of Build My Team. He is a practicing optometrist in private practice in Hawley, Pennsylvania, which is, my neck of the woods. It's where I kind of grew up. He founded Build My Team to solve his own hiring struggles in his practice by modeling how companies like Disney and the Four Seasons hire. So, Dr. Neal, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Karen. And it was so great talking with you before. For everybody listening, we've been yapping for about 10 minutes about all kinds of stuff and totally hit it off. This is fun.
Yeah. Talking about so if you don't know where Hawley, Pennsylvania is, like Google it. It's a really beautiful part of Pennsylvania. I can't stress that
Hmm.
enough. And I grew up in a town, maybe what, half hour, 40 minutes from there.
Yep.
And I played softball for many years and I played in Wayne County and we played in Hawley, a lot of my games. So we were kind of talking about that. And anyway, fun part of Pennsylvania. Highly recommend going there. But this is not like a podcast for Pennsylvania tourism. Instead, we are going to talk about best hiring practices. But before we get to that, Mike, can you give the listeners a little bit more about your background and how you kind of went from full-time practicing optometrist, medical provider to Build My Team consulting on hiring?
Oh boy. Yeah, that took several years, that transition. But it didn't Build My Team never started out to be anything at all. It wasn't even a company. What caused me to start this entire process were the problems we had with hiring, how awful resume-based hiring is, how how it just produces awful results. And when you're trying to run a practice, you've got people streaming in the front door, and you've got these employees who weren't hired well, so they aren't working in their natural strengths and talents. It was just one problem after another. It was really awful. And so the entrepreneur in me turned around and said, well, somebody does this better than us, probably everybody, because it was that bad. So let's go take a look at how they're hiring and try and figure out what they're doing. And that turned into basically an entire process that I used to run from my cell phone, if you can believe that.
I
Bit of
do.
it was a hot mess disaster trying to talk to candidates from the real live internet from a cell phone. But that ended up being automated, refined over several years. And now we're doing it in over 40 states for people in over 10 different healthcare professions, physical therapy practices included.
Amazing. And was there like a specific aha moment when you realized that your hiring approach needed to fundamentally change?
Yeah, I would say we had we had some serious issues hiring because we were hiring like doctors would. And what I mean by that is we were hiring to take the person sitting in front of us and fix them. Well, look, I'm here to tell you that that sounds great for the Hollywood movie approach, but that's not how you hire performers at all. High performers, I mean. You can't make people into something they're not. That's the wrong approach. What you do instead is meet them exactly where they are and look at what their strengths and talents are and figure out if that's a great fit for the job that you have open. And we've been able to do that and created that process in an automated way.
And how, in the intro, I had mentioned that you kind of took some cues from Disney and
Mhm.
from the Four Seasons. So, how do you bridge that gap between hospitality industry practices and a healthcare hiring practices? Because these are two very different businesses,
Oh,
right?
I would disagree on that. I would say they're incredibly similar. So when you are at your practice, you're in New York City practicing.
Mm-hmm.
about how big is your practice? How many team members do you have? That type of thing.
Myself and two others.
Okay, so somebody has to answer the phone. Somebody has to get people on some type of schedule. Somebody has to get you paid. Let's not forget about that one. And then somebody has to help you. And I mean, a team that size, you don't need any level of manager or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. So you contrast that to the hospitality industry. I'm not talking about a Super 8 motel, okay? I'm
Right.
talking about higher end experience where you're there for an experience. Um, One of the reasons why I'll tell you this quite candidly, one of the reasons why people want to see you is you are incredibly outgoing, incredibly friendly. You fit the bill for the type of person we would want as a physical therapist. Now, our company doesn't hire licensed professionals. We do all of the admin and the clerical team members. But imagine if your team members were all as outgoing as you are. Patients are going to flock to you guys. Flock to you. You won't know what to do with the patient volume because your referrals will be crazy. And how do I know that? Well, because I know what it takes to make a great healthcare practice. And the happier you are, the more helpful you are, the more you want to care for people, the better off you are in healthcare. And there's really almost no exception to that. Like even, well, I guess the high end it would be surgeons, some of whom don't have those types of personalities, but they have incredible outcomes. That's what makes people seek them. For all the rest of the team members, you want folks who are very similar to a high-end customer service experience. That's how you grow your practice like crazy.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And I used to say years ago, this was probably over 10 years ago, that I sort of based my practice off the Ritz-Carlton,
Hmm.
meaning a very individual, high-end,
Yes.
experiential, and that I was sort of the concierge,
Yes.
right? So I was treating patients, but also being that hub for helping them if they needed referrals, if they
Hmm.
needed, XYZ, I was there. And so I did kind of base um, I wanted my practice to be an experience for patients, not just, oh, I have to go to PT.
No, why'd you do that?
Because the patients and the clientele that I was working with, I don't take insurance. So I'm a cash
Hmm.
based practice.
Yeah.
So I know that people are spending their hard earned money on me. And I wanted to make sure that I exceeded expectations, that I was going above and beyond what they thought a physical therapy session would be.
Right. So you have a very unique practice. You have almost a boutique type
Mm-hmm.
approach
Yeah.
versus a volume model. And imagine the team members that you're bringing to the table. What if their version of exceeding is your version of barely meeting those needs? We both know that's not going to work out for more than a week or two,
Right.
right? So that's one aspect. Things that build my team will approach this is you have a very specific practice, and that's amazing because it makes our job easy to put people on your team. Our team would know exactly the type of people you want to work with, and
Mm-hmm.
most importantly, exactly the people you don't want to work with. So that's very straightforward. In most practices, it's not that crystal clear because the volume will be higher, insurance-based practices. You've got people who are going to PT because they have to, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be looking forward to it. You never know. So all of those are just realistic situations, and we have to meet people where they're at. So that type of practice, nothing wrong with it. They're helping
Mm-hmm.
people all day, but we have to make sure that we get team members who wake up in the morning and get excited to go to that type of practice.
Right.
And that type of person is very different from the type of person you're describing. Those are not the same employees. So let me ask you the magic question. When you're sitting in an interview looking at resumes, how do you figure out who's who?
Well, the people that I've hired, I have been very lucky in that I've hired physical therapists. One I had known for many, many years. So I knew his personality, I knew what he was like,
Yep.
and was super confident. The other person that I hired a few months ago was a direct referral from him.
Hmm.
And so I thoroughly trust him. And I met with her and just like got a feel for who she was. And
Hmm.
immediately she was outgoing, she was warm, she was charismatic, she knew what she was doing. And
Yep.
from my current employee, he said, they both work elsewhere. So they're doing like
Hmm.
PRN for me. But he said, she's one of the best therapists I've
Oh,
seen
that's terrific.
ever. And
Yep.
so I knew that she would be a perfect fit. And what I love to hear is when patients that they're seeing
Hmm.
let me know like they love you guys.
Yeah,
They love her. They're referring more patients to her, and
exactly.
that's what I love to see
Right.
and
So
hear.
you hit the nail on the head with that. What our business does is we find those types of people for practices in volume.
Mm-hmm.
We built the machine that picks that magic needle out of a stack of needles. So when you have a whole bunch of resumes on your desk, you don't have the faintest clue who's going to work out. You don't have the time to interview, none of that stuff. Our automated process goes through this entire from all the way from writing the job description to getting all of those candidates. And all you have to do when you're a Build My Team client is talk to two or three people. That's it. Our
Yeah,
team does everything else. So the point is to try and get those candidates to the practices that perform at a level where the owner of the practice says, "Wow, we need more of that person. We need to
exactly.
duplicate Karen." Right?
Right. Exactly. Clones. No, that's
Hmm.
crazy. I
Yep.
wouldn't want to clone. I wouldn't want to clone of myself. That's for sure. Um, but now you've kind of alluded to the different assessments
Hmm.
that Build My Team does. So it kind of incorporates psychometric assessments
Yes.
so that it's a sort of a scientific, predictable way to hire team members. So, what key performance factors did you identify as being most predictive of success in practices? So it's kind of what you were saying. It's the
Yeah.
difference between looking at people from an assessment approach just from a straight up resume approach.
Well, first of all, you got to be crystal clear that a resume doesn't tell you anything about what they're good at.
Mm-hmm.
It's what the candidate claims that they may be good at, and they'll tell you whatever you need to hear in order to get the paychecks rolling.
Mm-hmm.
That's reality today. And most of even take that even further, it's whatever AI cooked up on their resume to get those paychecks flowing. So, what are those key hiring components? It all depends on the practice because what makes a person successful in practice A may set them up for failure in practice B.
Mm-hmm.
Give you an example. So, one of the things we measure is stress tolerance. Sounds like a minor thing. Your practice, we don't worry at all about something like that. If you're seeing 6 to 8 patients an hour with a PT assistant or two, um, guess what, guys? Stress is baked into that day. If you don't have a level of stress tolerance, your PTAs they're going to leave. Your front desk team is going to leave. All of those types of things. We measure how they communicate. We measure how they like to be communicated with. We measure if they're individual contributors or if they are folks who like to be part of a team. We have pages and pages of information that comes out of this it's about a 10-minute process and just pages of information about these folks. Um, we can tell if candidates can sell, if they're comfortable selling. Now, in healthcare, that's not a big deal, but in some parts of healthcare, like let's say dental treatment coordinators, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
In eye care, the folks who do the glasses, the opticians, that's a big deal. So there's oodles of these criteria. And the key point of all of this is it has to match, the candidate's strengths and talents have to match what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, all kinds of things fall into place. If they don't, you're hiring another person in 3 to 4 weeks.
Right, which stinks.
Yeah, it costs you thousands of dollars.
That's right.
Mhm.
And have you been able to kind of validate some of these factors that correlate with long-term employment?
Yeah. Yeah, we most certainly have. So over 90% of our people that we place end up staying at approximately a year or longer.
Hmm.
It's in now that do we wish that was higher? Everybody in healthcare wishes that was higher.
Sure.
But the very nature of that means that we have much lower turnover for the people that we present to the practice for hiring than what they're used to. And it all boils down to asking the person who shows up for work to be themselves. So if you were asked to go into a PT practice that wanted you to be really kind of formal, kind of uptight.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, Karen, we don't really like to talk a lot to our patients. We're just going
Mm-hmm.
to be really like stiff and formal with them. And Karen, I think that it's really important that you get on board with that. How's that working for you so far? I can tell from the look on your face, like, get me out of here,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But what if you were a team member on that practice and that's what you rolled into each morning? How long is it going to be before you're looking for your next gig?
Right. Not
Like
long.
20 minutes? 30 minutes? You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Right. Yeah. And that's where the match is so important because the type of person that would fit into that practice would be extraordinarily different from the type of person who would fit into a practice like what you're used to.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not just so at Build My Team, you're not just looking at the candidates, but you're also looking at the practices as well. It's like you're a
It's the
matchmaker.
We are. Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the tighter that match, the happier the practice is, the happier the employee is, and the longer they stay.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And you just sort of alluded to the cost, right?
Hmm.
So there's definitely a cost of hiring staff,
Hmm.
right? So
Yes.
given that many practice owners were obviously very cost conscious, how do you help them understand the financial impact of bad hires versus the investment in a structured hiring process?
Well, right off the bat, our process is not expensive. We're not based upon the income that the person like their paycheck. It's a
Mm-hmm.
flat fee.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal is to get you people that don't cost a fortune. And quite simply, you're not going to continue to work with us if we don't perform.
Mm-hmm.
The, the next thing about that is that we really look to work with the individual clients because that match has to be so good. So when like we start off all of the positions with a consultation call, we want to hear all about your practice, all about what you like, what you don't like, um, the volumes. Like we do internally a profile on the practice so that we know exactly what they're going to be looking for, and that's put into our search algorithms when we're finding the team members.
Makes perfect sense. And what is, I guess, what is the pushback that you get? It's kind of common pushback
Mhm.
to a business changing their hiring practice because nobody likes change, right?
Yeah.
So what is some common pushback that you may get, and what advice do you have to business owners to like lean into that, maybe a little bit of discomfort?
Oh boy, where would I start? So some of it is, well, we do, let's say, disc assessment that assesses personality, puts you into a couple quadrants. That's great. We are operating at a level that takes that up by 100 times. Um, we're not. There's no magic test. That's the key point here. There's no
Mm,
magic anything. Like I can't run you through the Harry Potter assessment that will wave the magic wand and all of a sudden we know that you're the perfect employee because it depends on where you're working. It
yeah, there's
depends on
no
the
there's no
environment you're being
there's
put
no
into.
sorting hat.
There's no there's no sorting hat.
Oh,
Um, it it's a two-way match.
yeah.
And so that's one of the items of pushback. The second is I think that practice owners as a whole are extraordinarily risk averse. They don't like to try new things. Well,
Mhm.
guess what, folks? Try it, don't try it, but this is a completely different mousetrap that's been engineered from the ground up to produce one result, and that's a fantastic candidate for your particular practice. Um, Resumes don't do that. So imagine that you have a new patient. Um, they come in, you can't tell what's wrong with them. Okay. They're wearing, like, they're behind a screen. You can't tell what's wrong with them.
Hmm.
So you sit there and you ask them to tell you everything that's wrong with them. You don't have a clinical report. You didn't get any prescription from an orthopedic surgeon or anything like that. You just got to listen to them. And then you make your decisions based upon what you're going to do, based upon what a person tells you. And that's it. You're not allowed to physically assess them or anything. How comfortable are you with moving forward in that environment versus you have the entire operatory report from the orthopedic surgeon. You've got you've examined them. You've figured out that they're telling you about their sore elbow. It's actually their knee that they had surgery on. Like these are the types of things that we were kind of joking about, but that's an interview.
Hmm.
You are listening to a person tell you how great they are. And you're listening to a person who has to make their car payment by Friday or their rent payment. They're going to tell you whatever you need to hear.
Hmm.
If you don't believe me, try hiring more people. I'm not trying to be arrogant about it. It's just, it sucks. It's
Hmm.
awful. And in healthcare, as providers, we are hardwired to help people.
Yes.
In our model, the doctor, especially the doctor, has to be kept as far away as humanly possible from the hiring process because the better doctor you are, the more empathetic you are, the more you like humans, the more you want to help people, the further you have to be away from this process. Or else you will continue to hire people who are basically wounded puppies that you need to nurse back to health. These are not high performers for your practice. I'm not trying to be insulting in any way. It's just an inverse relationship between the
Hmm.
better like clinician you are versus how your performance will be with hiring.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And hiring is stressful. It's uncomfortable. We want to do what's best for the health of our practice. And so I think to have an outside perspective to kind of take your emotions out of it is probably exactly what most people need.
But it's not that it requires a practice owner to admit that. It's just a
Hmm.
practice owner needs to ask himself, hey, what if this works?
Yeah.
Now, what if this actually works? And what if I can get people in, hiring with Build My Team, the entire process, soup to nuts, takes about an hour's worth of work on the practice owner side.
Well, that's nice.
That's it.
Yeah.
And this is, you contrast that to anywhere 20 to 50 hours. Sometimes it can be absolutely ridiculous
Yeah.
for a position. Um, so when you take a look at the effectiveness and the time savings, obviously I'm biased, but even in my own practice, the results spoke for themselves. It was
Hmm.
just the team became so functional that it went from just dreading going to work to this is going to be fun. We're going to have a fun day. Like every day was a fun day.
Yeah. Yeah. Which isn't that what everybody wants, right?
Yeah,
Um, And so, as we said at the beginning of the show, you're in Northeast Pennsylvania. I mean, would you consider it rural? I guess more rural when compared to where I am in New York City. Um,
very rural. Yeah.
yeah. So, how do the hiring challenges differ between rural and urban practices? And did you have to make any modifications to your system to work across different practice sizes and locations?
Yeah, we sure did. So in urban New York City versus Hawley, Pennsylvania, like rural small town America, are
Mhm.
polar opposites on the labor market. Um, if let's say somebody's commuting a mile to get to your practice and work, how many PT clinics are they going to be going by? 20, 50? Who
Oh, you
knows?
mean here in New York City?
In New York, yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's a ridiculous number.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania, commuting a mile, well, you're going to walk that.
I was like,
Um,
does
like,
anybody commute just a mile?
no, nobody does. So, in our world, it's a completely different labor market. We will
Hmm.
have very few relative to an urban popular center. You're going to have a completely different labor pool. And one of the specialties that Build My Team has is we generally do not hire people for experience. That's a pushback that we hear a lot too. Well, I need somebody with experience. No, that's what you're used to doing, and it's working out very poorly for you, respectfully. Then when you bring in people without experience, um, that works exceptionally well when you have people who learn incredibly quickly, which we measure, folks that are a natural fit for the position. So you give them some training and 2 to 3 weeks, and they're up and running in ways you can't even imagine. And folks say, well, another pushback is, well, we have to train them. Yeah, but you have to do that anyway. Even a person coming in with experience, what you don't realize with experience is you have to untrain. Well, we did it this way at Dr. Jim's practice. Yeah, but you're not at Dr. Jim's practice anymore. And we do it a completely different way. And here's why. Versus, and trying to untrain that behavior versus telling a person who has no experience, we do it this way. And they're like, okay, off and
Right,
running.
right, right. Yeah, and there's a cost to all of that, right?
There is. And the other part is if you're trying to bring in people with experience, especially in a rural area, you won't find them.
Yeah,
But you can grow your own. And what I mean by that is you bring in these super um, intelligent people who are just on the ball, and you're hitting all of their natural strengths and talents. You're going to spend 2 or 3 weeks, and then they'll be like, "Yeah, I got this."
yeah,
You know?
absolutely. Yeah, I always said like I don't really hire for experience either because
Yeah.
I can send someone to go to a course. I can
Yes.
show a physical therapist how to do XYZ, but
Hmm.
I can't teach a physical therapist how to be kind and how to be
Oh,
empathetic and how to be
no.
on time and how to be professional.
Right.
These are a little more things that I think are kind of in the person.
Yes.
So I've
Hmm.
always felt the same way. Anybody can learn anything
Yeah. And well, what a lot
for
of
the
people
most
who
part.
interview folks are scared about is, well, I don't want to have to train them because they're so used to the people that they bring into their practice as being, uh, you know, functionally untrainable. And they're right. Yeah, some people aren't trainable. That's not who you get from Build My Team, but I've had all kinds of people like that in the past.
Sure, sure.
And you pull your hair out.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like Groundhog Day over and over again. Well, they would have been gracefully cut from our process because they wouldn't have met the requirements to continue in our process.
Got it. Got it. Well, this is all making a lot of sense. And it sounds like it's a real service to um, healthcare practices, especially those like smaller businesses where maybe you don't have the time to, like you said, put in hours and hours and hours
Yeah.
of work. So,
Hmm.
as we begin to wrap things up, what are the main takeaways that you want the listeners to come away with from our conversation?
Um, Incredibly affordable, hardly any time commitment, about an hour per hire, and that's actual. This isn't a
Mhm.
sales pitch. Um, Mind-blowingly effective when you match strengths and talents to what a business actually needs. And that matchmaking concept's really funny because that's the main thing for a practice. We find people are going to be able to excel at your particular position in your particular practice. We do so very affordably for a tiny time commitment.
And where can people find more information if they want to get in touch with you or they want to learn more about Build My Team?
Yeah, easy. Buildmyteam.com.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And how about can they find you on social media? LinkedIn, Facebook, anything like that?
Yep, absolutely. We're on the major platforms. I do suggest that they go to buildmyteam.com and simply schedule a consultation. It's free. You talk to one of our team members about your practice and your hiring woes. Tell them, be as honest as possible, and because we've heard all the horror stories, but the more honest you are, the more we can help your practice.
Perfect. And if you were not taking notes, like I suggested you did in the beginning,
Mhm.
don't worry. You can scroll down to the show notes and the links to everything that we spoke about today will be there. So one click will take you right to the website. Now, Mike, last question. It's one that I ask everyone. Knowing where you are now in your life and your career, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
Boy, what a great question. I think that I would I would say there's so many ways to go with this, but I would say that studying older material, older business material versus the new age fad of the week type stuff will provide an incredible um, outcome long term for you. I mean, I'm a big reader, so some older books that um, I think of. I mean, one of them, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow
Mm-hmm.
Rich. Not a book about making money per se, but about how incredible industrialists thought about how they built their careers, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you read a bunch of stuff from Warren Buffett, his shareholder
Mm-hmm.
letters, not a book per se, but that man has some wisdom of the ages, if ever there was it.
Totally.
And that type of approach, you say, well, what does that have to do with my practice? Oh my goodness, it is exactly what you're doing all day in your practice. You know, those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I wish I did more of that back then.
I think that's great advice. And thank you for sharing those books and those resources with the listeners. I really appreciate it. So, thank you so much, Dr. Neal. Again, if you want more information, go to buildmyteam.com. Click right below in the show notes on whatever platform you're listening on. So, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen.
And everyone, thanks so much for listening. Have a great couple of days and stay healthy, wealthy, and smart.